Minister, to move the adjournment.
I beg to move that the sitting be now adjourned.
The question is that the sitting be now adjourned. I now call Mr. Gregory Campbell.
Thank you, Mrs. Reardon. I know it is a normal protocol for members who speak in Westminster Hall to congratulate members on securing a debate and saying it is a topical and important issue. And I can say with the utmost of assurance, Mrs. Reardon, that this is indeed an exceptionally topical and very important issue in Northern Ireland, because over 200 jobs are at stake in the Coleraine area, over 300 in Northern Ireland as a whole, and the knock-on effect is a total number of jobs in excess of 500. Could I at the outset say, Mrs. Reardon, I want to apologise for the absence of my colleague Ian Paisley Jr., who has worked very closely with me in this campaign, as his constituency and mine adjoins, and many of the employees come from both our constituencies, as indeed they do throughout Northern Ireland. I want to give a few indications of the wider context, Mrs. Reardon, and then come to the nub of the matter in relation to DVA and the services offered there. The Causeway Coast area and Northern Ireland as a whole has been severely hit by unemployment in recent years. Now, people will say, well, has the whole UK not been hit like that? And the answer is, of course, yes, but more significantly so in Northern Ireland. We have been cushioned to a little degree by the dependency on the public sector in Northern Ireland. And in that context, last week, no less a person than the Prime Minister himself was in Northern Ireland to try and encourage inward investment, because he and the government and the executive and my friend and colleague Arlene Foster, the Enterprise Minister, realises that because of the dependency on the public sector, we need to encourage inward investment from the private sector. So this is not a case of taking jobs from the public sector and trying to transfer them into the private sector. This is a case of supplementing our existing dependency on the public sector by private sector inward investment. So the Prime Minister came last week to try and bring jobs to Northern Ireland. So the last thing we want to see, Mrs. Reardon, is, as a result of the consultation which just closed a few weeks ago, that his government takes jobs from Northern Ireland. And hopefully that will not be the case. So the North Coast has a lower than average wage structure compared to Northern Ireland as a whole. And Northern Ireland as a whole has a lower than average wage structure than the United Kingdom as an average. So therefore, we can see from that the absolute dependency on getting and creating not just more jobs, but sustaining the employment that we have. Now, the context of the proposed relocation goes back some 8 years. And I first raised the issue in 2005, whenever the previous government were looking at possibly amalgamating driver and vehicle licensing services to Swansea then. And thankfully that was overcome and good sense prevailed 8 years ago, when people saw the efficiencies that could be achieved and the service that could be maintained to motorists and others in Northern Ireland. Now, the numbers of people involved are 230 in Coleraine, over 100 in the rest of Northern Ireland through the various sub-offices, and then 200 more on top of that whose employment depends on the DVA in Northern Ireland. So the total wage loss, should centralisation go ahead to Swansea, the total wage loss to the Northern Ireland economy would be in excess of £11 million annually. And that would lead to a total economic loss of about £20 million to Northern Ireland, which we simply cannot afford. The Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, I raised it with her, as did many of my colleagues. And when we raised it with her, she made a very fairly straightforward commitment. And I quote what she said in April of this year, some 6 months ago. The quote is, "It is important that the Minister takes into account the views of Northern Ireland before he makes his decision." Now, that is a very obvious statement, but a very radical statement at the same time. Because just 2 weeks ago, the views of the Northern Ireland people became absolutely clear, if there was any doubt. Because a debate was held in the Northern Ireland Assembly, and for any interested observers in the Northern Ireland Assembly, there can just occasionally be matters of division, and people can divide on political matters, and it does happen from time to time that we don't always see eye to eye, says he with a little bit of sarcasm in his voice. But on this issue, Mrs. Reardon, not only was there cross-community support, but there was total and utter unanimity. Yes. Not a single voice of dissent there came from the chamber. So the voice of the people of Northern Ireland, the views of the people of Northern Ireland, were endorsed on the 30th of September this year, just 2 weeks ago, where the Northern Ireland Assembly voted unanimously to support the retention of the jobs and services at the Driver and Vehicle Agency in Northern Ireland. So now, Mrs. Reardon, I want to turn to the actual jobs and services that are provided. In the agency, an assessment has been done regarding the composition of the workforce, and 73% of the workforce is female. Many of those female employees are carers and have other dependents. Obviously, any decision to centralise the services in Swansea would have massive implications, not just for the employees, which it obviously would have, but for all of their dependents. Some of those females are part-time employees. Now, the prospect of trying to get other employment in Northern Ireland that is trying to attract inward investment, which I've just alluded to, is going to be remote, going to be very difficult to attract other employment opportunities for that predominantly female staff. So I want to then turn to the actual service that is provided by the Driver and Vehicle Agency. An analysis has been done of the services offered by the DVA, and current satisfaction rates are very high. Now, I want to draw some comparison between the satisfaction rates in terms of the services that are offered in Northern Ireland compared to the DVLA in Swansea. And I want to do this with a word of caution, Mrs. Reardon, because I fully understand that the complexity and the sheer scale of the DVLA at Swansea is going to provide a much more challenging environment to achieve targets. All the more reason, I would have thought, not to add even more to the burden that is already faced with the people in Swansea. But the facts are that, for example, the issue of changes to registration, to vehicle registration, and the survey in the past 12 months has shown that 95% of those transactions of changes of registration are completed in Northern Ireland at the DVA within 5 working days, which is an excellent achievement. And that same 95% completion rate at the DVLA in Swansea is carried out in 11 working days. So we have here the issue of, as I say, with the sheer complexity and scale in Swansea, it is a reasonably good performance to get change in registration completed almost exclusively, 95% of the time, within 11 working days. But in Northern Ireland, we achieve that same performance in less than half the time. Now, what people in Northern Ireland will be saying will be, if centralisation goes ahead, are the change of registration processes for us going to worsen by more than double? Yes, I will. I will give way.
Giving way and congratulating him on securing this debate. He may be interested to know this is a question I did ask my officials as I was aware of this potential problem, and I was assured that the refund example is due to the different ways in which the transaction is measured. The DVA's target is to process a refund within 5 days, but does not take into account any subsequent work that may arise in complex cases. The DVLA's target is measured from time of receipt until a refund has been issued. The actual time taken to process these transactions is about the same in both agencies, I'm assured.
Gregory Campbell.
I thank the Minister for that explanation, although I was going to come next to refunds. Which my understanding is a separate... Yes, I'll give way to Mr. Prime.
Is the honourable gentleman aware, as I'm sure he is, that the staff side response to the consultation refers to the perception, in many cases actually backed up statistically, within DVA, that DVLA have vigorously, systematically and aggressively underfunded the IT development system within the DVA. Under those circumstances, would the honourable gentleman not agree with me that what we have here is a remarkable workforce that should be cherished rather than centralised?
I thank Mr. Pound for that, and I was coming on to IT, and he has, in his prescient way, as he normally does, anticipated that. Yes, I'm in the mood for giving way, so I'll give way to Mr. Simpson.
I thank the honourable member for giving way and commend him on getting the debate, which it is indeed a very important debate when we have some 500 jobs at stake. But if the figures are correct that the honourable member has given as regards to Swansea, surely if everything is moved from Northern Ireland to be centralised, it will compound the problem, and it's inevitable that it will be a longer timescale for the paperwork to be completed for customers.
Mr. Gregory Campbell.
It would appear to me, and I think most people, that would be the case. I wanted to move on then to the actual issue of applications for refunds where that is required. And again, my understanding is in that particular category, again, the 95% target is achieved within 30 working days in Swansea. Again, allowing for the sheer scale of the millions and millions of people who would tax their vehicles. I can understand that figure would be a challenge. But that same category is achieved again in 5 working days in Northern Ireland. 95% cleared refunds within 5 working days. So whichever way you cut this, it is absolutely clear that in terms of value for money for the service offered, there is a significant service being offered. The point that Mr. Pound made is, and the workforce have repeatedly told me this, that there has been an underinvestment, particularly in the IT infrastructure there for many years. Given that context, the fact that they achieve such remarkable results is, I would have thought, to be cherished and also to be secured for the future. But on IT, and Mr. Reardon, I want now to move to the database of customers that the DVA in Northern Ireland service. Again, a recent analysis has shown that over 60% of DVA customers in Northern Ireland are aged 44 and older. Now, as we all know, that is the age group that are lesser likely to be IT literate and to be online in order to take advantage of registration via a computer. So the vast bulk of potential customers who, if it were transferred to Swansea and the push for greater online registration continued, would be disadvantaged. as a result of the loss of face-to-face, localised telephone recognition and knowledge of that breakdown and demographic in Northern Ireland. So I think that has to be taken account of by the Minister. The other issue, Mr Reardon, that I want to raise is the one that I think there cannot be any dispute about, and that is that Northern Ireland is the only region in the United Kingdom that has a land border with another EU state, with the Irish Republic. Now, traditionally, over many years, evasion rates have been significantly higher in Northern Ireland. But because of a comprehensive campaign to reduce those evasion rates in Northern Ireland, that has been significantly reduced. Part of the reason it has been significantly reduced is because of the local workforce with the local knowledge of vehicles, of residences and of evasion rates that were continuing in the past but has been reduced recently. What are the prospects? What are the chances of evasion rates in Fermanagh, South Armagh, Tyrone, with the border with the Irish Republic, being precisely located by people who are operating from Swansea? It is going to be a much more difficult task, and I would contend, I think with some justification given the past figures, that evasion rates will rise rather than fall. So I don't think we want to be in a position of encouraging evasion or allowing it to increase rather than continuing the drive to get evasion down. I want to then move, Mr Reardon, to a very, very important reference point that has just emerged in the course of the last 4 days. My understanding from some media reports over the weekend is that the Independent Complaints Assessor report of the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency have a draft report of the last 2 years, that's 2011-12 and 2012-13. That draft report is currently back with the various departments for accuracy checking. And my understanding is that that report, when it is released in 2 weeks' time, and I've been assured yesterday that it will be released by the end of October, and hopefully the Minister will be able to confirm that, that report will confirm a significant increase in the volume of complaints about the type of service people get at the DVLA at Swansea. Now, obviously, it's a draft report. We wait to see the final outcome. But if that is the case, if complaints are on the increase, part of the reason will be because of that sheer volume of and complexity of cases being dealt with at one centralised agency. If anything can clinch the case, Mrs Reardon, for retaining a localised service, it will be the context of the series of events that I have outlined. Yes, I'll give way to the Minister.
I did ask what the level of complaints were prior to this debate happening, and I was told that for the most recent year that we have statistics, there were 12,500 complaints to DVLA, which measured against the number of transactions at 170 million represents 0.01%. There has been an increase in the level of complaints referred because of the change in the way that complaints are handled. Previously, the Chief Executive had to refer complaints for consideration. Now they automatically go through, which does explain to some extent the increase in complaints that have been registered.
Well, I'm glad the Minister has confirmed that there has been an increase, and I note that he said in the most recent year. My understanding is that the draft report refers to the last 2 years. So we shall await to see, unless he has further information about the increase in the previous year. And I don't think he has. I'm glad and I accept the Minister's comment on the increase and the reason for it. But all the more reason, Mrs Reardon, for all of these significant points that I have raised, and my colleagues and honourable friends and members have raised also, all the more reason to retain a localised service that will take account of these issues. So I want, in conclusion, Mrs Reardon, to ask the Minister to do three things. One is that he, and I have extended an invite to his right honourable friend, his colleague, and I extend it to himself, to come to Northern Ireland, to Coleraine, to see at first hand the level of service, the work that is put in by the employees before coming to his final decision. And in connection with that, to take account of the very unique circumstances that prevail in Northern Ireland before coming to his decision. Having done those two things, Mrs Reardon, I would then call upon him to retain the excellent services that we have in Northern Ireland and those much needed jobs that go with such a service. Thank you.